Welcome back to career building. Yay, work. No. I mean, work is something we're going to do, right? In our work to make a living. And you could be newlywed, you could be engaged, you could be already starting your career. So we recognize that these things aren't all necessarily linear, but whatever the scenario is, if when you are in a stage where you're beginning your career and that's evolving over time, there are very common challenges that you'll experience in your relationship that they can threaten and weaken your relationship. So our job here is to make you aware so that you can be proactive, preemptive in reducing any damage that could be done there, and that you're in alignment and that you navigate this growing stronger and preparing yourself for the rest of your marriage. So sadly, the Bible says after the fall that we are going to work, that we will toil to make a living. And that's okay, because the beautiful thing about marriage is that we are doing that with someone, that we have a life partner, that we can navigate the challenges and the weariness sometimes that we face and the fatigue. And sometimes it can be depressing, to be honest with you. I mean, we grew up on our own, after when we left the nest, it was
good luck.
It was,
here you go. Here's their insurance.
Yeah. So, we were motivated. The bridge was cut behind us. So we had to, if you don't work, you don't eat, so you stop complaining about it when that's your only option. But regardless of your situation, we want you to think through what work is, because our culture will definitely be pulling you in a direction where we must have the biggest house, or at least a bigger house than our friends, a better car, nicer clothes. And it's not that you can't appreciate those things, but we want to emphasize that we work to live. We don't live to work. And it's a subtle difference. You commented like when you were in Europe, actually, that it seems like in other cultures that's kind of a norm. You see people not overemphasizing material, and instead prioritizing the relational, in their family and in their marriage. And I mean, what you observe is very evident. I mean, what do you recall, what you saw there?
Well, we were there during the summer, so we learned that the entire month of August is taken off usually.
That's nice.
That they really don't live to work. They are enjoying their lives a little bit more. And not to say that it's everyone, but I just noticed a big difference in the rat race that's here, which I am also part of. So I think it might have been an internal lesson that I was receiving on our trip there, that maybe I needed to step back and look at my own life and why I was feeling so driven to move up the ladder, to make as much money, to want and desire certain things that I didn't really need, but I enjoyed. So I think the balance was something that was an important lesson for me to learn on our trip.
Yeah. So what we want you to be thinking about is the fact that who is our ultimate provider? And, we've both talked and reflected on our success materially when we go back and analyze it. It really wasn't, we came up with this amazing strategy, this 5-point plan, and we executed perfectly on this. And that's where our wealth came from, materially speaking. It was God. God is our provider. God gives us the ability to do work. He gives us mental capabilities, physical capabilities. He gives us relationships that we can, work within and do things from a wealth building standpoint, but it's never meant to be God. And our culture will pull us in the direction. That is the river that is flowing, and we're in it. It is pulling us towards get more stuff, get more money at the expense of everything. And if you do this, what you will have is you will have the world. And this is very much like when Satan took Jesus up and showed him the world and said, this can be yours if you'll just bow down. That is what the world is telling us. If we bow down, we will get all those things. And it is a lie. And we know it's a lie because we can look in the world around us. It is very evident. We can look at people that have everything that many of us are striving for, and they are in their 5th time in rehab. They're in their 8th marriage. They don't have what we really want, what we really need, what God calls us for, and that is relationship with Him and relationship and community with other people, loving other people, giving and receiving love. So that's what we want to emphasize with you, is that we need to be aware of what the culture is doing, and we can't be pulled in that direction. We have to resist. And so what that looks like from a day-to-day perspective, It looks like we're going to prioritize, we're going to be in alignment financially with a financial plan, and we're not going to be sucked into being strained financially at the expense of our relationship, right?
And sometimes that's a moment by moment or day by day reassessment.
Yes.
And that's okay.
That's a great point. This isn't a rigid thing you decide once and it can never change, but it's being in alignment. It's talking about it. It's saying, hey, I think we should do this. Pam, you got offered a promotion. It's going to require you to work 60 hours a week and you're going to be traveling, 20% of the time. Is that wise and prudent for our marriage? Because our marriage is number one. It is now, it always will be. So you talk about those things and you have to say, what am I giving up in exchange for whatever is being asked of me from the time or whatever resource I'm giving up? What am I giving up? And is it coming out of my relationship with my spouse? So that can mean driving an older car. It can mean buying used things. Whatever that looks like, we want you to preserve your marriage, because there are plenty of people that are incredibly happy, deeply connected, that rent a house, that drive a 10-year-old car. Maybe they even use public transit. It doesn't matter. Your relationship is the most important thing. Your relationship is what the world will look at and say, you're Christians, you love each other, you got married. What do you have? Show me what is your relationship? What is the fruit in your life? And if it looks like you're striving like everybody else and you're stressed out, who wants that? I don't want that. I really don't want that for you, and I don't want it in our relationship. And it's there for you. These are things you can leverage, you can incorporate. And the beautiful thing is they're not difficult. We're not asking you to actually do more. We're actually asking you to do less. Just do less. What's that? Forgetting Sarah Marshall, if you've seen that movie where he's learning how to surf. And he's like, okay, lay down. Okay, now pop up. And the guy keeps popping up. And he's like, no, you got to do less. And he gets to the point where he can't even get up. He's like, I can't do any less. And that's a little bit of what we have here in our relationship in this career building phase is let God give you the promotions. And pray about it and be in communion with your spouse about what you sign up for and where that's going to take you. Are you being asked to move cross country to get a 20% bump in pay, and you're going to take your kids out of school and it's going to cause great stress and trauma for you? That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it means you want to do it in communion with your wife and in deep prayer and ask God to tell you what you should do, not just go based on what the numbers on the pay stub say. So when we think about work, I want to say this to be clear: working and providing for your family is a very noble thing. God calls us to do that. We can actually worship God in our work. So there's that concept. We can do all things as a means of worshiping God, and that includes our work. But we can overwork, we can over provide, and that can cost us a lot. It can cost us everything. It can cost us our marriage. So we want you to continue to be aware of that. And for all of us, men more so, I would say, we have to be careful about what work is, what our career is to our identity, because that is also a slippery slope depending on your friend network and how you grew up and your view of the world. It's not uncommon for men to feel like my success at work, whatever that looks like in your career, defines who I am. And what we want to do is we want the ultimate definition for who you are to be, one, rooted in Christ, and two, the success of who you are is going to be your marriage. If you can get those two and you have leftover to do whatever you want in your career, do it, as long as your wife is in support of that and you're not sacrificing your marriage. But those are the priorities we want to continue to hammer home. God, your relationship, and what's left over, go run a company. I don't know. So let's move into another aspect that's very common when you're working a lot, you're married, you're a lot of moving parts. That's going to be your sex life. And, it's a common challenge. It's a common grievance. I'm too tired. Everyone's busy. You're going different directions. It gets, further complicated when you have children. And we'll talk about that in the next session. But the solution, or a solution that can help you, a tool in your toolbox, is scheduling sex.
That sounds not very romantic.
Why? Why isn't scheduling sex romantic?
Well, I mean, it's not that it's not romantic, but it doesn't sound romantic to schedule something that's supposed to be spontaneous and, like fluid and in the moment.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It sounds kind of terrible. And it can be. I mean, frankly, if you if you literally put it as a reoccurring thing on your calendar, every Wednesday night at 6 from 6:30 to 7, it just says sex. Yeah, that's not so great. But it's really going to be your mindset around it. So the idea of how scheduling sex can work very successfully is you talk about your spouse. And again, this isn't rigid, but this is a strategy of like, hey, we need to carve out time. If we're not intentional, then we're just going to be reactive in our marriage. So if we're not defining a time and we're busy all the time, then how much time do you have left for sex? You don't have any time left. So the benefits of scheduling sex is we're going to talk about a time, like let's figure out, it could be a couple days from now. Like we're so busy, we need to make time for it. So scheduling sex allows us to mentally and physically prepare, for that event and have something to look forward to. I mean, Pamela, as a woman, what would you say to women around this idea? Because I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was joking around about it not sounding romantic because it's one of those things that if it's scheduled or on the calendar, it's kind of like a to-do list or like a check off the list of things that you have to do, which in that case would be you. But what I think is romantic about it is that it's something to look forward to. And for me, I like to shave my legs or put my favorite perfume on or like wear something cute for you. And I think sometimes for women, if we're running around and we're working, that it does take a little bit more mental preparation instead of what guys can just, 2 seconds versus women are 20 minutes to kind of have the foreplay and the thoughts around it. And the getting ready process is part of the foreplay to me. It's like some of the fun that I look forward to looking cute for you. So I think that scheduling it gives me time to be able to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we as guys can be, the day of, we can be saying sweet things and be talking about it. And it gives everyone a nice, like kind of all day to look forward to something. So it's a great tool. Try it out, but we want to make sure that you aren't leaving your sex life on the back burner during this career building phase, because that weakens our relationship. It weakens the intimacy, and we have to be intentional and find a way to weave that into our lives, as busy as it may be. All right, we'll wrap up this session and enjoy the content. And we have a nice exercise that will help you get in alignment with your spouse as it relates to your career and what are the hedges and kind of boundaries you want to have around that. And we will see you next time when we get into the child rearing phases of your marriage. So get ready for some diaper changing and some babies crying, and we'll see you next time.